Hey everyone, welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture, and we are back in the saddle once again for another season. And I do have a sponsor for this episode. It is brought to you by Nightwolf. Born into the outcast breed of werewolves known as the Monakai, 18-year-old Rodney Marcelli is reluctantly pulled into an ancient war between good and evil during a modern time where the lines have blurred. With the help of Snowfall, the pure-blooded Monakai, and the supernatural evil slayer Night Hunter, Rod must learn to master his newly found lycanthropy and mysterious kinetic energy and power that only he possesses, and Rod must fight the Dark Covenant in order to avenge his friends, family, and to save the girl he loves from the master vampire Lord Malice. Rodney Marcelli is Nightwolf. Nightwolf 1 to 7 is live now on Kickstarter through May 11th from the creator team of Rob Matari, Mog Park, Carlos Serena, and Gat Melvin. Join the Wolf Pack by backing the Kickstarter today at lonewolfcomics.com/Nightwolf. But enough about that, because I have with me another comic creator who is returning finally, Alton Simpson. So welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
You know, I enjoyed our first conversation, and you kill it on Kickstarter. And you have one currently going on with another one for Libertine. And I think it's an art book, and it's a very interesting campaign. So what is the basic premise for those hearing about it for the first time? Because there's a lot of stuff going on with this book.
Well, I wanted to do a new character, like I did with Bunny Goes to Space. But before I do a new character, I usually come up with the basics, as a writer. So Libertine is an ex-military black ops mother of two who becomes like a vigilante once she gets back from the war for a lot of different reasons. But she's kind of like a cross between, kind of like, I like that first season of Daredevil where he wore the black outfit. So she's kind of like a covert operative at night. But for the art book, she is very patriotic because it's military. And I wanted to, with the actual book, I wanted to kind of discuss the themes of, PTSD and what military people go through, not just on the battlefield, but when they come back too. She's been described as like a female Punisher. So,
Yeah,
with the
let's
art book,
actually dive into her a
go
little
ahead.
bit, because obviously, I mean, you have a character who doesn't have superpowers, doesn't have
Right,
supernatural powers.
right.
And you said that she's obviously ex-military. And what is this like? Because obviously you've done a bunch of other books that definitely deal with superpowers and supernatural powers. And I think this is in the same world. And so what is that like to kind of, I guess, take, I guess, a step away from all of, you know, I guess, werewolves and vampires and magic and witches, and now
Yeah.
deal with, kind of the military side of things, and a
Yeah.
character who doesn't have
Well,
that.
those are all grounded. There are vampires, but then there are people with no powers in those stories too. But yeah, with this, it is different. I always try to do something outside of my normal wheelhouse. Bunny Goes to Space was completely different from the horror stuff, and this is different than Bunny. All of these comics are shared universe, so eventually they'll bump into each other if they haven't already. But yeah, I wanted. I actually know a few female military, people that are going to consult with me. I'm going to consult with to develop the comic. So, it's new space, and I'm really interested in now that the Kickstarter is doing pretty well. I'm interested in releasing the comic probably this time next year.
Yeah, and let's actually even dive into this a little bit further as well, because obviously this is an art book. And
Right.
so you're really developing the character, building her out, I guess,
Yeah.
building out not necessarily the world because it's a shared universe, but her part of the world. And
Right.
so, what is this like for you? Because it's very interesting when you get to test something, and then also you get to see what people react to and what people don't react to. And
Yeah.
obviously, the Kickstarter, I think, has been very positive. But when people get this art book, they're also going to have a different reaction. So, what is that like for you? Because it is sort of cool, I think. And I think it's actually a
Yeah.
really cool tool in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I tried to kind of crowdsource the idea. Uh, Usually I come up with something and I give it to the artist. And with this, with superheroes, there's usually some type of costume, but I wanted it kind of grounded. But Kickstarter is very pin-up-y. So, there are pinups in the art book, of course, but giving it to the artist, I don't really give them that much instruction. I think my main instruction was I wanted her to have some type of goggles she would wear in case of, to protect her eyes. And I liked, when I was a kid, I always liked bomb pops. They're red, white, and blue. So I kind of gave them that. I said, that's the kind of the color scheme I'm looking for with the uniform. And I let them run with it. And then each one gives me their interpretation. And each one is different. And then when you put it out there on Kickstarter, you get different reactions from people as to what they like, what they, actually everybody seems to have their own fans based on the artist. But, some are more popular than others, and that'll help inform me when I'm, working with the artist that's going to do the actual comic.
Yeah, let's actually talk about that because I think this is fascinating. I really do. In which that obviously when you have, 200, 300 backers, everybody's going to have a different, interpretation of this character. But
Yeah.
obviously, I mean, you're testing the market. And I think it's something that, obviously the big two, I think, have failed at
Mm.
massively in the last few years. And I even think some, creators don't understand that. And I think it's such an interesting thing to say, hey, what do you want as the audience? And I think it's a very simple question. You walk into a store and I say, hey, look, I really like when you have this in stock. If I'm a business owner, that tells me to go buy more of it. And I have people,
Right.
I run an eBay business and people say, hey, do you have this book? And I'm like, I don't. But when I see that book or I see something similar and I get 4 or 5 people asking me for it, you're damn right. I'm going to go pick that up because my
Yeah.
audience wants it. And so it's so interesting. I find it so fascinating because you're really the only person that I've ever speak to who thinks somewhat like this.
Well, the entire arc of my books has been really based on feedback from when I first started and I got into local stores. The local comic store owners would tell me, this is what people are saying they like about your book. This is what's selling. And I would kind of guide what I was doing, development of the other issues based on that. Oh, they like the werewolves. Maybe you ought to spin them off. So I spun them off. So it's kind of been like I do something and I get feedback as I go. And I'm a research scientist. I have a PhD in management of information systems. So my entire dissertation, when I was doing a study, you do things and you ask people questions and you get feedback on different things. So it made sense to me from a storyteller perspective, not to bend to the will so much of the customers, but to really ask them what they want and kind of incorporate that with what I'm already doing. And so far, the comic store owners were like, you're up to issue 5. You should make a graphic novel because that'll help people get into your book quicker. So then I did that. So then they sold out. So it's kind of been like the positive feedback that I've gotten, constructive feedback. I always incorporate that right into what I'm working on. And it's worked out, pretty well.
Yeah, no, I just think it's so smart. I think it's brilliant in so many ways. And then I kind of want to dive in further into this though, and into a little bit more of
Mhm.
her as a character, because
Right.
obviously there's a lot of stuff that's going on with her choices and everything
Mhm.
she does. And obviously former military, she's a mother as well. And this is
Right.
also really interesting because this actually grounds her, I feel, as a character in many ways too,
Mhm.
where now you have somebody who's getting sucked into a world and a conflict, but she has kids. And that's
Yep.
something that I think is really fascinating because the consequences are real. And so
Right.
what is that like? Because we get a taste of that, I feel, in this. And obviously there's going to be a lot more when this full book comes out. But
Mhm.
what is that like? Because I feel too many comics don't have consequences.
Yeah, you kind of have to raise the stakes. So there is some dramatic tension. I'm a parent. I know, as soon as you have kids, everything changes how your perspective on how you look at things. And I thought that would be interesting to incorporate into this character. I really haven't done it before. Uh, Blackjack is a father. He does have a kid, but he's on the run. So I haven't circled back to his kids as much as I'll do with this comic. But yeah, you want some type of drama to draw people in, and you want something that they can relate to. And also as a writer, I want a story I haven't told before to keep me interested too. So it's got a lot of good elements in it. And when I describe the profile to the artist, I kind of gauge how they react, and they were very excited to draw this character. I asked for 2 pieces. Some people gave me 3 because they were like, I just love drawing this character. And when that happens, I know something's going on.
Yeah, what is that like? Because I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm sure you understand when you hit gold, right? If that makes any sense. Where when you know
Yeah,
you're
Bunny
on,
was obviously an explosion that was not wholly unexpected because I kind of engineered her for Kickstarter, but I was very surprised that. But once again, the artist, once I told him it was kind of like Barbarella meets Harley Quinn, the artist kind of lit up like a Christmas tree. Like that's usually a good indicator that I'm onto something. And then the first art book with Bunny did 17 on Kickstarter, and then the second one did 37. So Bunny by itself has done 50K on Kickstarter, and then an additional amount on Indiegogo, and then even more, on the eBay store. So it's gratifying when that happens. But I do kind of write something I think would be interesting, not just to me, but also to other people.
because I understand when I hit gold with something and I just know it and I see it. And
Yeah,
it's very, I guess, what you said, gratifying in certain
yeah, I had a
ways.
feeling.
But it's also the idea that I know it and then you run with it. And then when an artist is like, oh man, I want to do more with this and I want to submit more pieces, I
Yep.
mean, that's an artist who obviously is getting paid, wants to do more. And that's usually when I would imagine, because I haven't had this happen, but I
Mhm.
would imagine like, okay, I have something here and now I need to
Yep.
cultivate it. And what is that like? Because I don't know if that raises the standards up or pressure or what exactly that means, or if it makes it easier to some degree.
Well, it's fun for me. I know I pretty much had almost the same team since I started in 2020 with Kickstarters. So I've probably got right now I have about 10, and they do work with other people because obviously I can't employ them full time. I do 3 Kickstarters a year, but they seem to work with me for. I mean, you'd have to ask them, but it seems like they like the idea of the characters that I come up with is one. I'm not super hands on. I want them. It's more of a collaboration. It's not me going, you got to do this. It's more like, what do you think of this? Back and forth. I know when I work with Shikari on Bunny, Shikari's in another time zone, and I would get texts in the middle of the night, and we really, it reminded me of when I filmed. I've through my media company, we've done commercials and films that have been on uh, Amazon Prime, streamed on Amazon, and on Comcast commercials and stuff. And when I work with an artist that was like super actor that was super method, how does the character hold the cigarette? How does the character sit in the chair? And Shikari was like that with Bunny. I mean, it was literally like, I'm thinking of putting these like moles here. What do you think? I mean, it was very specific. And that paid off with the image in the end, because, attention to detail. And all the artists I work with, CB Zane, Wendy, Shaner, Steph, Wilson, and Carrie Ann. I've been working with them for a couple of years now. So we kind of do have like a
Yeah, we're going
mental,
to talk about all this stuff.
yeah, mental link about mental link about working together. But I give them the freedom to run with things, and I think that's why they like working with me. I mean, you'd have to ask them, but it feels like that. And they, when you let people use their own imagination with your idea, they come back with something you never even thought of, and you're like, wow, I never looked at it that way. That's really cool. So you kind of have to be open to, and then I hand that to the Kickstarter people, and then they give me their feedback. So it's a fun process.
Yeah, yeah, and I did want to talk about that, and we're going to go through
Mhm.
some covers, but I do want to touch upon one topic or two topics before,
Sure.
where obviously, one of the things that I like about this is that it's a very strong female character. And
Yeah.
I think it's a very important thing to have strong female characters in comics. And,
Mhm.
look, I love bad girl art, and I know a lot of people love bad girl art, but it's also nice to see a strong female character beyond the cover. And I
Right.
think that this character is that. And I think it's important, for both men and women in certain ways. And I
Yeah.
think it's very important to also get, girls into comics in
Yeah.
certain ways. And I think it's gotten a lot better, but I don't think it's enough. And so, what
Yeah.
is this like for you? Because I think this is a good thing where we have a badass character that's just not, I guess, for, a sex icon, for lack of a better word, to put
Yeah.
it nicely. And it's kind of nice to see a kick ass female that
Yeah.
actually has some serious merit, is extremely patriotic. And,
Yeah. Yeah. Those are themes that I'm excited to talk about and create. Um, Kickstarter is very friendly to female heroines, so that's always a plus on Kickstarter. But for me, being raised by a single mother, in the '70s, where she really had to fight for her place, on a regular basis to become successful. I'm empathetic to women going through things in order to succeed, and this is that type of character. The patriotic aspect, as Americans, I don't think because of divisiveness today, I don't think we get a chance to say, you know, how much we love our country or how great things can be, because it's the promise of America that binds us together. And those type of themes are things I'm interested in discussing and writing about.
Yeah, let's also talk about that too, because obviously, I mean, patriotism, things of that nature, it is a very hot topic issue, I think, in
Yeah.
America. And there's a lot
Well,
of stuff going on
to
with
me,
it.
it's not as political as people make it. It's a natural thing. I travel outside the country a fair amount because my wife's from Czech, so I go to Prague, and I was just in London, and it's a great thing to be an American in the world today, because we always have a different perspective than the rest of the world. We don't always agree with each other or them, but we do have that like mental and spiritual independence that other countries wish they had still. Even if they dislike some things about us or what we do, they still like the American dream concept. The American lifestyle is everywhere. I mean, you can't go into a club without hearing American music or seeing American clothes or hip hop fashion or whatever. So we are everywhere. But yeah, the patriotism is I always like Captain America, Wonder Woman, that first season of the TV show when she's in World War II. You know, I always like that representation generally of our patriotism, not specific to any type of political belief, but just like, hey, we're all in this together and we got to succeed. So
I just like the American flag, and I'm obviously a
yeah,
very patriotic individual,
yeah,
and I think it's cool, and I think it's great, and I think I really do think it is way too political. Where
yeah,
I think you can love America, and you can love your country, and you should love your country, and I don't really understand why it's whatever it is and
yeah,
why it's so political.
yeah,
It doesn't have to be, and it's kind of nice to touch upon those topics and even what I feel it means to be patriotic, and how you deal with being patriotic, and
right,
how she deals with it, because obviously when you're dealing with PTSD and you're dealing with coming back to civilian life, and I worked
yeah,
in VSOs before,
yeah,
and obviously in certain aspects it can be very tricky, and everybody
yeah,
reacts differently. And so I think it's going to be very interesting. That's why I'm very curious about this, because I know a lot about this topic of what
yeah,
it means to be former military coming back into civilian life, and
yeah,
how you adjust, and now your skill is being called upon in a different way, and
right,
it just makes for a hell of a book, I feel.
yeah. It should. Yeah, I haven't actually. I've sketched an outline of what I want to do, but I'm waiting until the Kickstarter is over before I sit down and really write. But I remember my uncle not getting into Vietnam because he wasn't physically able to go. He had something that kept him out. But his best friend from high school went, and I remember him coming back and him being in the house with me when I was probably 5, and an airplane going by and him totally freaking out. And we didn't call it PTSD then. There was there, they didn't call it anything. It was just him freaking out, and then me freaking out because he was freaking out. So, these are things that, that real people go through, that I want to discuss, in an informative way through the book.
No, it's a very important topic in a
Yeah.
lot of ways, and it is a very sensitive topic. And I feel that comics are a great medium to talk about them. I really do,
Yeah.
because I think, relaxes the topic and the stigma with it, and I think
Hmm.
it actually can facilitate a conversation
Yeah.
that might not be able to happen without another medium. Because I think a
Right.
film sometimes hits it, but I think it doesn't. And I think with a comic, it gives a lot of control to the reader on how they want to digest it. And I think actually it's perfect. I mean, Paul Gomez, I don't know if you know Paul Gomez, he has a book called PTSD. And I think
Hmm.
it really does a nice job in addressing that. But we're not talking about Paul today. We're not talking about Paul. We're talking about you and your book. And I
Thank
definitely
you.
want to dive into the art aspect of it. And you definitely touched upon it, where a lot of artists had a lot of interpretation. And so we're going to show some of the covers, because I think that's the
Cool.
fun part.
Yeah.
And I don't know I know this is one of them.
Yeah. It's Lance Footer.
And so that's one of them. And this is kind of cool, where, green hair, goggles,
Hmm.
very, sort of, I think it's sort of a homage to Miss Marvel, and to
Hmm.
some degree, a little bit. That's what came to my mind. I like the helicopter in the background, or maybe the
Right.
shadow of the helicopter. I don't know if it's in the background or the foreground or off screen, whatever it is. But then you have
Yeah.
this one right here too, and that's the goggles. And then you have
Yeah. It's
this
Ruben
one,
Rosas. Yeah.
and so that's
Yeah. Ruben
cool.
he actually turned in 4, which was really cool. He was just excited to draw her. It was very, very cool.
And then we have Wendy's stuff right
Yep.
here. And so we have that one, and then
Brewery,
this
the
one,
Sheener.
and that's cool. Now, I don't know who this is. I never heard of this person.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's Steph Wilson and Carrie Ann, his wife. I actually we met before I did my first Kickstarter at a super tiny con here in New Jersey, and he reminded me after we'd worked together that I was the first person I think to ever hire him. But his art is like all over a lot of campaigns now,
I
you
love
know.
Steph. I love Steph. I love
And I was
everything
like,
Steph Wilson does.
yeah, I was like, Steph, I looked at it and I'm like, this is completely different than anything I've ever seen, you know. And then we started working together and it was just like, boom, you know, fantastic work.
And what is that like? Because I know you've done a bunch of covers with Steph, and I know you've
Yeah.
done some fun stuff with him. And obviously, I like what he does with his nude covers, because you
Hmm.
obviously do nude covers, and he
Yeah.
makes them a little bit more playful. And I think that's really a nice touch that
Hmm.
some artists understand and some don't. And what is that like for you? Because it makes it different, and it also makes it fun and there's one cover where there's one bat when she's clothed, and then there's like another one where her top's off and like all the bats are looking. And it's
Yeah.
a very fun cover. I forget which book,
Yeah.
and you probably know the book I'm talking about, but
Yep.
it's a very, very, very fun cover.
Yeah. Yeah. Steph, he always comes up with a different twist on everything. And it's very individual and it's always very playful and very interesting. It's not just a picture, there's usually something going on, which is cool.
And then since we're diving into military stuff and other things of that nature, it wouldn't be complete without something like this, which is sort of the poster. And I want you to join the
Yeah.
revolution, and that's kind of
Yeah. I
fun.
had an idea. Bob Heron drew that. And I remember the Uncle Sam posters, from, I guess, World War I, World War II. I want you to join. And I said, Bob, what do you think? Could you whip that up? And he's like a super quick artist. He did that in like, I don't know, a day or something. But yeah, I wanted a poster like the old US Uncle Sam posters.
And what is that like? Because that hits a different niche, and it's kind of fun. And obviously, if you're a former military and you
Yeah,
have, obviously PTSD and other things, it's kind of fun to throw that in there. And everybody knows that poster too,
yeah,
which is nice.
yeah. I wanted something kind of familiar, but would show the character and draw you in a little bit.
And then even going further into this, and it's a little more risque, some Devin
Yeah,
Maisley. And
yeah,
this is something else.
yeah. Devin always does very fulsome women, voluptuous. And he actually threw in, I have a cousin who has a record deal with Matador Records, who's on tour right now. And he actually threw in his tour poster right behind her revolver there on the wall, Algiers. It's actually my cousin singing into the mic. They were picked 2016 by Rolling Stone, one of the bands to watch. And they're on tour right now, actually, in the U.S. But yeah, Devin knows me, and we're friends on Facebook, so I think he just like incorporated a couple things in my actual life. Occasionally, artists do that. They, on this blackjack poster back here, he drew me into the crowd picture. I can show it. Back when I had a little bit of hair.
So what is that like to incorporate a bunch of stuff into your life, and when artists do that? Because I'm a big fan of Easter eggs in books.
Yeah.
And I think it's fun. I think the whole thing in comics is that I think people forget that this is supposed to be fun. Yeah. And I think it's a real issue, right? Like, because I don't know if you back, I mean, I can't speak today. But I back a bunch of campaigns, and sometimes the book is just not fun. Like Bunny Goes to Space is a fun book. And
that's what everybody liked about it. After the vampire stuff, they were like, wow, this sounds like a lot of fun. And, I tried to make it, fun. So it was like a relief for people,
Because I just backed the book, Moonshine Bigfoot, or Bigfoot Moonshine. And it's Bigfoot, Moonshine, and Muscle Cars. And I didn't need to read any more of it because it just sounds so ridiculous. And it sounds so just like, how can this not be a fun thing to read? And I feel like that's a problem in comics. And when an artist incorporates something fun into your cover, and they know you,
it was very cool of him to do that. We were talking like old, like 70s, 60s, and 70s rock and roll posters. So it's kind of like a tribute to those two. So yeah, Devin's an amazing artist. He's fun.
Yeah, because I think that's the thing. And then obviously, we have this one right here, which is CB Zane.
Yep.
And so we got that one, and then we got this one, and I don't know how to say her name. I think it's a her.
Jacksina?
Yes. I was not going to get it. I quit while I'm ahead.
I assume that's how it is. I never actually said it, to the artist, but I mean, another super cool version, and I just, like I said, I said generally red hair and this, that, and the other thing, and this is what came back. I mean, it's kind of amazing. I'm a lucky guy.
It just blows my mind in which that, like, I don't know how you have that trust. Like, I don't have any of that trust, and it just blows my mind that you're like, hey, have at it. Here's some parameters and have fun. Like, to me,
like I said, I have been working with him for a while. I think that's like the third cover I've done with that artist. So, and then the others like CB and Steph and Carrie, that's 3 years we've been working on stuff. So there's a little bit of like, trust when I hand it to him. But like I said, I like the collaboration. I wanted them to feel we're a team and we're working together, and it seems to be working out.
And then there's this one too, which is pretty cool.
Mr. Howe.
Yes, and I think you've been working with him for a while too.
Yeah. We have a lot of fun. He really seems to enjoy my characters too.
And then this one is the one that I like the most.
Courtney.
And depending on how I do on basketball tonight, I may or may not back your campaign. So you better be rooting for the Knicks. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. You want to cover, just let me know. You can always get one from me direct. But Courtney is a lot of fun. She appreciates the 80s, and I lived in the 80s, so we talk a lot. I actually wrote a short comic of her and I going back in time in the 80s and screwing everything up. And I actually posted, I had Bob draw the cover to it, and it was like a Back to the Future homage, and I'm Doc and she's Michael J. Fox. But I actually wrote the comic out, and it's only like a 10 or 15 page comic, but every year where we show up, we wreck something. like we show up at Reagan's inauguration and we screw that up. And then we show up on Miami Vice set and we screw that up. So everything that happened in the 80s, we're kind of in there by accident. But yeah, that's Courtney. She does brilliant work, always.
I love that one. And then I know who this is, and I have a good relationship with Greg Bow. And
Bow.
He's great. He's like the nicest person in comics. He's legit
him and
the
Glenn do
nicest.
brilliant work.
And so that one is great too. And then there's this one as well.
Mm-hmm. Ruth Lucas.
And then I like the bullet holes in the back.
Yeah, she took her time with it, and it really came out strikingly. I mean, I really enjoy it. And like I said, different interpretation completely, but cool.
And then obviously, and then what campaign can we not have with a cosplayer? And this is, I think, Kara.
Yeah, Kara I met actually before my first Kickstarter, and she blew me away with her brilliance and her imagination, and she had enough time to, she's very busy to do this interpretation of my character. So I got very lucky. But yeah, anytime you can work with Kara Nicole, I don't care who you are, do it, because she's a pro. In her Fire Bitch Kickstarters and the work she does with her husband Alfred, I mean, they're at a whole nother level. So anytime I can work with them on any type of project, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, I think there's like a naughty bunch of this stuff as well, and so obviously, I mean, there's a lot of choice for somebody to have with all of this. And I'm not going to show the naughty stuff because I would like to maintain my YouTube account and my Facebook account. I really would. I put a lot of work into it.
Yes. Don't screw that up on my account.
That's
it's on there. People can see it. It's cool.
And so what is that like, though, to give people choices? And I also know that you keep a lot of this stuff relatively affordable, where I think like the Courtney's like 15 and a bunch of them I think are 15. And so that's one of the other things about Kickstarter that drives me crazy, is that a lot of people keep a lot of this stuff way too expensive.
Yeah. I always talk to Wendy CB and everybody on the team about where our price is now. Because, you go 3 months and things change. I think the biggest thing is just making sure you cover your costs as far as shipping, because, if you don't, then you end up eating a lot, and then it makes it hard to even do the next campaign. So that's covering my costs is probably my biggest, not fear, but thing I focus on the most when I'm pricing things. I like things to be affordable for people. I don't want you not paying your car note or I had one guy who canceled a pledge and I thanked him. It was huge. And I said, dude, that sounds like it's like your mortgage payment. I'd rather you do your mortgage payment than buy from me. You can always buy from me, but you need a house for you and your family. So I want people to have, the right priorities when it comes to getting my stuff. I'll make sure you get what you're trying to get, but don't go too crazy.
Yeah. What is that like? Because this is one of my concerns. This is the part where we get, I guess, controversial, is that there's a lot of people on Kickstarter, I feel like, who are running campaigns either every month or every other month. And I think that there's a concept, and maybe it's because I'm a dividend investor, where you could kill your cow and get paid today and double your money, or you can milk your cow for the next 10 years and get your money out of your cow, but still have your cow. And I think that there's a real problem where I think a lot of people are killing their customer.
I don't want to put, I'm not Marvel, I'm not DC. So, or Image, or, all these other guys. So I don't want to put something out every 30 days or even every 60 days, because I think it'll eventually become a burden on the person. First of all, most people that buy on Kickstarter, just like the people that buy on eBay, they're buying more than your product if they're on somewhere like that. So they are spending money on a pretty regular basis. So I try and make my stuff affordable, and I space out my, activity, because I want it to actually be an event. It's kind of funny. Everybody's been complaining about Marvel movies and Marvel TV shows. And you know what? They're right. Once you start cranking it out all the time, there's nothing special about what you're doing. You're just cranking it out. Whereas Marvel movies used to be an event. Oh, look, it's this. This is going to be great. And people appreciate that more, I think. So I try and make what I do for these Kickstarters and even Indiegogos events, like, hey, I've been waiting for Al's. Al's been talking about this Libertine character. With Bunny, it was the first time I really had a chance to do that. I developed it one year and then I released it a year later, and people went nuts for it. So I think it pays off better if you take your time with developing and giving your audience what they want.
I agree. I mean, I'm a huge wrestling fan. I used to go to a lot of indie wrestling shows, and it was only once a month. So what it was for me is that it meant something, where this is like a pay-per-view. That's what it is. WWE does a pay-per-view a month. It means something when it's Backlash. It means something when it's Night of Champions. Because guess what? It's a Saturday night and it's once a month. If they were doing it every Saturday, it would lose, I feel, what is known as the event, or the end of a storyline, or the beginning of a storyline. And I think that's something that is important. And I just think that also, if you were running a campaign every month, I probably would skip a few of yours.
Right.
But if you're running it every 3 months, every 4 months, you're giving me time to recharge, especially if I want 2, 3, 4 covers. Now I have 120 days to the next one, and I could plan accordingly. And that's where I think this is very complicated. I think it's actually a failed business plan in certain people, because guess what happens? Life happens. Your car breaks down. Your kid gets sick. Something happens. And then your customer's upset, because guess what? They want everything. And if everything works out fine and their life is perfect, great. They get it because they can afford it. But shit happens. I mean, and so that's my biggest problem with Kickstarter is that, and that's why I try to stay away from people who are running 12 campaigns a year, because you're going to kill me. And, I got expenses in my own personal life. I think everybody does.
If I could, I don't think I would. I'm very comfortable every 3 or 4 months presenting what I have to, people that seem to keep coming back, and, and delivering, fulfilling the way I'm supposed to, and, just trying to keep things going the right direction. It's comfortable for me, and it's comfortable for the team of artists, and it seems to be comfortable for the backers. So that's the circle of trust,
And then
it just fits.
Even going further with you as well. And the other thing too that drives me crazy, and I don't know how many Kickstarters you've backed, but I think I've backed like 42 or 52 at this point. And
I'm in the 40s.
I'm owed a lot of books, and not all of them are late, but I would say about 10 of them are late now by over 3 months. And I understand that 3 months for some people is not a big deal, but for me, we're starting to etch into where when it goes from 3 months to 4 months to 5 months to 6 months, we're slowly getting to the point where I'm not going to see this book ever. And a bunch of books, they're on time, or I think they're on time, but still, when I'm owed 30 projects that are, I guess in limbo, for lack of a better word, I am very hesitant to back another, because I'm like, I'm sort of overexposed. And part of this, I think, is that a bunch of books aren't done. And I know your book is done.
Oh, yeah. I make sure all my books are done before I start my Kickstarter. So I literally have the file. With the art book, it's kind of like as the art comes in, I'm actually assembling the art now, but the art's done. It's not like I'm waiting for the art. All we have to do, and I'll do it before the end of the Kickstarter, is put the book together. If it's a specific issue of a comic, like I have Witches of Westchester 2 coming in probably July, that book will be done. I'll have the actual file ready to print before the Kickstarter launches. And that's for me personally, so I don't have to worry about it, because you have enough to worry about with these campaigns. You get, I'm doing podcasts, I'm trying to post, have other people posting, it's a lot. So the last thing you want to worry about is the actual product, because it's going to be, when the Kickstarter is over, then you go to the printer, then you got to deal with them. You don't want any issues on your end. You want to be able to say to people, hey, I have the file, I sent it to the printer. Now it's on the printer's back, but you don't want to make the printer mad at you either, because then they'll put you further back in the queue. So it's a real, juggling game, trying to, deliver. But having that product ready to print before I even start getting money in is the key to me being able to turn things around quicker, not quick, because it never feels quick to me. When you finish a Kickstarter, you got 3 weeks before you even see the money, you know. So that's anxiety right there, you know. But the file's ready. When the money comes in, I've already talked to the printer. It's, you know, I try turning it around as quick as I can because I know I don't want to wait for things. You know, we live in an Amazon world where you could order something in the morning and have it by the afternoon. You know what I mean? So, you know, you got to, you know, tell people if you're having issues, don't disappear. That's another thing people complain about. They spend their money and then they get busy with life and then the person never contacts them on the Kickstarter. And then 6 months later, you're like, didn't I back that Kickstarter? And that's happened to me a couple of times, you know, too. So I'm not immune to these feelings of, you know, abandonment. But I don't want to put people in that position. I do everything I can not to. So
Yeah, no,
hopefully,
I think it's a problem. I think it's a problem. I think that
yeah, it is.
unfortunately, I think people get in over their heads. I really do. And I think, you know, a
Very
lot.
easy to do. You start believing your own hype. You get all, hey, look at those numbers. I'm great. You know, this is going well. You know, you got to deliver. It's not even you know, the money coming in is, you know, first that's the issue. Oh my God, the money's not coming in. What am I going to do? Then the money's coming in. Now you got other issues. You know what I mean? So it's
I
you know,
think it goes down to the fact that a lot of people, and feel free to disagree with me, that a lot of people in comics are not necessarily good at business. And I think they don't
oh yeah,
understand how
yeah,
to manage. This is a business. This is not a hobby anymore. The second you cross, I even think a $1,500 level, you are now a business. I mean,
yeah.
I'm being very generous at that point, but when you cross $10,000, it's a whole different ballgame. You know, when I was selling $600 on eBay, it was very different than when I'm selling $20,000 on eBay.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between those numbers, infrastructure. And I think a lot of people do not understand in comics that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, this is a business and it's a complicated business in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it definitely helps if you have some business training, or you know, train yourself how to take the money in, make sure you get the product and deliver. You know, because I mean, fulfillment's the key to everything. You know, you don't want to do one big Kickstarter and then, you know, it all goes to. Yeah, it's not it's not a business model. Yeah. So.
No, it is not. And I also think people don't understand that, you know, where you make your money too.
Mhm.
As well, because there are models where you can make your money on Kickstarter. There's models where you can make your money at cons. There's models where it's a hybrid. Are you just trying to get your book funded and cover, you know, printing and then some extra books so you could, you know, move them at cons or get them into stores? And I think a lot of people do not have a plan. I really think
Yeah.
a lot of people have a really bad plan. I don't
Yeah.
think you're one of those people because I think you have a plan.
Well, I'm flexible. You know, I've been in stores. I do cons. I do big cons. I do when they let me in. I do small cons when I can get a table quick enough because you know, they're busy too. I have a couple small cons in Jersey I keep getting invited to, but you know, I get occupied with shipping or something, and then by the time I ask for a table, you know, the tables are all gone because you know, it's all a business. You know, so but
But
yeah, you have to
you've
have
been lucky. You've been lucky because you've been in some serious cool stores. I know that you were in, you know, the secret stash for a while.
Yeah, yeah, I've been lucky. Well, somebody bought my book at the New Jersey Horror Con. They went home and they were just like, "Can you put it in my local store?" And you know, they told me it was that one, and I, you know, went up there with my wife and kid, and I was just like, "Isn't this like a famous place? I mean, what am I doing?" She's like, "Just go." And Mike, you know, was cool enough from Comic Book Man to just say, "Hey, Kevin loves indie people. We'll put your book right up front." And then a month later, I called and he said it's sold out. And all my books, multiple issues, have sold out 6 times up there. And I did a signing there last October, and I just actually saw Kevin last month. I went up to talk to his podcast partner. You know, they always say, "We'll be here, come up and ask questions and hang out." So I'm like, "Hey, I'll drive up. I don't care." And I'll go up and say, "What did you do with your, you know, how did you move along in the business?" And they actually will tutor me right there on the spot, which is very cool. and Kevin just happened to be there. And I met him during COVID after he recovered from his heart attack. I met him, and he kind of remembered me, because of the book, which was nice, And I talked to him about comics, how you take a comic to film, and he was very helpful. So yeah, I've been lucky, the product sells, and when something sells in their store, people kind of remember you and they're kind of happy with you. And if it doesn't sell, when my books, have an issue, I actually would take feedback and fix it, because I'll be honest, my first book was based on my movie that was in the Philadelphia Independent Film Festival. I took it to my local store and he was like, "This thing's horrible." He said, the artwork, this was, I guess I saw it pop up on my Facebook. So that was probably 2015. And he was like, "The artwork is not, consistent." And, he told me all the things that were wrong. And I took it to heart. And then I don't know if I internalized it or not, but I kind of put it in the back of my brain. But then when I did vampires, I kind of avoided all that. And the next time I took that book, he was like, "Oh, the paper's good. That's why I got in." And then it sold out. So that was the beginning. I'm actually doing a signing there. It's been 5 years since my book sold out at that store. I'm doing a signing there on Saturday for Free Comic Book Day. So, when you fail, which I failed a lot, you had to not get angry with the world and yourself. You had to kind of listen after you're over your disappointment and retool and try again. So
yeah, what is that like? Because I fail upwards. All my life, I have failed upwards, in which that every good experience I've had has always been a negative experience first, because it's always been a failure. But I've learned how to invest as a failure.
That's smart. Yeah, you have to learn from it. There's a reason why things went horribly wrong. You had to figure it out. It's not all rocket science. Some of it's luck, but a lot of it is preparation.
I mean, in which that, I had a failed interview where I've had about 3 of them in my career that were just horrible. And I've learned that, it was just every name was being pronounced wrong, and I was just not there, and it was just like an off day. And what I learned is that I knew I was having an off day, and what I should have done is I should have canceled. And I should say, "Hey, look, I'm having a really bad day. This is going to end poorly for everybody here." And if I did that and then we rescheduled the next day, it probably would have been a better interview. And it was a struggle. It was a very painful interview for me, but I learned a very valuable lesson. I also learned that there was another interview where I just was not prepared and I got my ass handed to me, and that's how I prepare. But it's weird, but and I've taken constructive criticism that's helped. So it's a skill, I think, to be able to take constructive criticism in a way and actually understand that it's not personal.
Yeah, because it feels very personal.
It depends who's saying it.
Nobody there but you. It feels pretty personal, but yeah, you had to kind of take it and say, "What can I do to improve how I present or what I'm trying to do?"
I agree, in which but it definitely feels personal. There's no way it doesn't. But I mean, you know it, and I know it.
It's bad, yeah.
and it's not good when it's somebody you respect and they're taking an axe to you, and they tend to be blunt. So, there's been people who have been very gentle, right? And it's easier when they're like, "I'm going to wrap you up in a blanket and then I'm going to punch you." Where it hurts. But there's people say, "Look, here, I'm going to punch you and there's going to be no blanket."
It's tough, man.
But I digress, and I completely just but there's a reason why scars exist. But I digress with all that. Obviously, you run this thing like a business. I know that you're entering the eBay game too now, which is crazy because I know your books go for a lot of money, and I also know that there's a bunch of other stuff on this campaign as well. That's crazy. I think there's like prints and some Shikari prints. I don't know if there's like Shikari catch-ups. Bunny Goes to Space left over.
Yeah, people have been asking for the Shikari stuff, and it's blown up on eBay, of course. And I thought, I'll put it with the Kickstarter so people can just go there and get as much as they want. So I put prints, and I've done 10 books with Shikari, So I put all 10 books on there, and you can get them as regular prints. You can get them as foil prints. Have a Shikari-thon if you want, whatever. The books are beautiful. The work is brilliant. And, I thought I'd add them on there along with the shared universe comics from all my other books.
And what is that like? 'Cause that's also a big pet peeve of mine when creators don't allow other things from their campaigns to be added on. Because let's be realistic, sometimes people miss things. And I'm not saying you have to do like, super exclusive, like cover double F on there that was on one, but even a cover A. Because I'll be really honest, like I've missed things from people. And I'm like, look, I don't need that super rare cover you have. I'm just looking for a cover A of your first issue.
Yeah, that's fine.
And
it's pretty easy to put. It's pretty easy to put it on Kickstarter because none of it exists yet necessarily. With me, I actually have leftover stuff from every campaign, and my wife's like, "You got to move this stuff. It's got to go." So I literally tell my backers, because you know who your previous backers are. I say, "Look, my wife wants to get rid of this inventory. I'm going to put this stuff back on, the stuff that you've been asking for, and you can get it out of my house." So I'm perfectly happy to relive the oldies, so to speak, because I actually have some laying around. And then some stuff, like if somebody wants a certain, variant, it doesn't exist until, I put it up there. So I'm perfectly willing to put it up there. There's no fault if you just throw something on the pile, because it's all got to be ordered together, So I'm very flexible in that regard.
No, it just drives me crazy when I can't find something. Then I have to go hunt it down. And I'm just like, why wouldn't you just give me a cover A? I'll happily take a cover A if I want somebody's all your work. I understand that you have to protect people and exclusivity. I get it. I run a business based on that. And I completely get that if it's limited to 50 and you don't have any, I get that. But your cover A, I just want to read your story. That's all I want sometimes. And it drives me mad. And let's be realistic. You know it and I know it, that you have money at certain times, I have money at certain times, and other months are just tougher than others. And so there you go. And so that's what happens. So, it drives me mad when that happens. But again, I just think it's bad business. I think it's bad business, and I think a lot of people need to just get better at it.
Yeah, well, I've had people say they missed something, and I'm like, well, you PayPal me and I'll ship it to you. I mean, just tell me what you want. I have a problem doing that, Al, my bills came due right when your Kickstarter finished, and I couldn't finish what it. I'm like, yeah, dude, that's fine. It's not a problem. I try to accommodate if I can. I can't do everything, but things within my wheelhouse, I should be able to pull off.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense, and I try to be accommodating too. And I'm going to definitely take that out of your book when I run one of these things. I did run a Kickstarter. It was very, very, very difficult, and I got a lot of shit for it. So
yeah, my earlier ones, I got like, even from, how you can tell it's going well when you launch and you don't get a bunch of angry emails right off the bat. I used to get like so many emails from people. This is what is this? What because it was all very confusing and mishmash, or I left something out.
Wasn't even
now
that.
It's kind of like I get like one or two emails or comments, and I say, well, okay, it must be organized enough that people are okay with generally, how it works. I mean, you're always going to hear from some people, but you don't want
Oh man, people hated my thing, man. Oh my God. What happened is that my thing was simple. It was simple.
Yeah.
Wasn't hard.
They don't hold back much.
So it wasn't simple. I funded. I was raising money for this show for season 3. Yeah. And oh my God, people hated when I was posting. And some people were very supportive, but some people were like, why are you doing this? What's the deal with this? And I'm like, but there's like 15 other podcasts that are doing the exact same thing. So
yeah, you're not the only one. Yeah, it's not like you're alone. Other people have done it. I mean, what's the deal?
And people were just, all people wanted to do was just attack. And I'm like, what's your problem? If you don't like it, you don't have to back it. And after a while, what I started doing is I started trolling back. So I started just playing songs for specific people that were targeting me. So I would copy something. And so I started with the Spice Girls. And then I had like a whole playlist ready. And amazing. But we didn't get through the first song. I just did Stop by the Spice Girls, and then it all stopped. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Nice. But I didn't understand why the hate. If you don't like it, change the channel. It drove me crazy. I still don't know why the hate. But
that is weird.
It's whatever. It's whatever. You know, I guess, you know what, some people just, you can't please everybody, I guess. But
well, you can try, but it ain't gonna work. You do what you can.
I digress. There's 32 seconds left in the next game. They're up by 7, which means they're gonna lose. I'm very optimistic here, guys. I'm very optimistic on my stream.
7 minutes in basketball, though, is like an eternity. It's so weird. Those last couple of minutes are so intense.
They're up by 8. It's 31 seconds, and basically all they have to do is let Miami take 5 seconds off the clock and dribble the ball. That's legitimately all they have to do.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And they're still going to lose. Just watch. Just watch. It's going to happen. But I digress. Enough about the Knicks, because that's not what we're here for. I know you're rooting for them, for my sake.
Of course.
But all jokes aside, I do want to take a step out of Kickstarter, your Kickstarter. Obviously, I'm probably going to back your campaign. I definitely want that Courtney Rose cover because I think it's beautiful. And I'm a very patriotic individual. And who knows, maybe I'll buy some other stuff. But I actually have to look at your campaign a little bit closer. But I do want to talk about the business a little bit with you because you obviously have been doing a lot of stuff, and we touched upon it briefly. But where do you think it's all going? Because obviously, I mean, you do good on Kickstarter and you passed the $10,000 mark. But I find that the whole thing is tricky right now, where there's a lot of good things out there. There's also a lot of bad stuff still out there, I feel. There's also shipping is complicated. And so where do you think it's all going? Because I think it's tricky at the moment, and I think it's complicated, comics, and especially indie comics.
Yeah, with me, I haven't really studied what everybody's doing, so it'd be hard for me to kind of predict. It's changed a lot, even from when I started doing them 3 years ago. It's much more competitive, more fragmented, a lot of different things going on. But I haven't looked at the entire picture. With me, I'm always looking to expand. I've been in stores. I've had the store owners tell me I should be national. You know, I should be able to be in every store. I've been talking to some literary agents that want to represent me to publishing houses for my graphic novels. So I'm always looking for a way to expand. But I'd prefer to be like Lady Death with Brian Pulido, in that he, takes one product and creates it for the stores, and it does well. And then it's like a circular thing. He comes back to Kickstarter and takes that energy and does another successful Kickstarter, and then he goes back and forth. And for me, that would be my ideal business model, because I've already been in stores and I've had a positive response. I just see everything as it's fragmented, but it's still, indie comics is still big. It's bigger than anybody knows, because nobody counts all these Kickstarter books that are selling. They don't show up in anybody's numbers for the industry, and people are buying them. I mean, even if, I sell less or somebody sells less because there's more Kickstarters, people are still buying independent stuff. So to me, that's a positive sign,
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you this, because I think I know the answer, but do you think it's healthy? I mean, because this is my biggest concern, is that it's tricky, where I don't know if the industry is healthy, or if parts of the industry are, I guess, quote unquote, toxic, where
it's all toxic. I mean, yes, there's too many Kickstarters and there's too much activity, but that's happened in every industry. And when it happens, there's usually a shakeout, and the big shakeout will come, and then you'll have less people doing, what we do. It's just a matter of time. You can only burn a candle at so many ends. Right now it's like a lot of ends being burned. So, with me, like I said, I've got backers that seem, I had one guy last time, he's like, I backed a bunch of Kickstarters. I got nothing. How are you getting me this book? How he literally was just like, how are you turning this around? So I said, well, I plan on doing that. You have to plan on getting the product to the customer, not just all the others, the fun stuff, the hard work at the end. You got to plan on that. So I think it'll shake out. I think it'll take a couple of years, but yeah, you throw a rock and you hit a Kickstarter right now. It's a lot of activity,
Yeah. I mean, look, you know what is, I'm being very selective right now on
Mhm.
Kickstarter. And I
Yeah.
also hate to say this, and I'm going to throw something up, and it is a Shikari book.
Yeah.
And this is like the book that
Yeah.
came out, where that book sold out in 3 minutes. Shikari's Star Wars stuff in the
Yeah.
last 4
I
days
know.
sold out like crazy.
I know.
Um,
That's why I wanted to work with him. I mean, Shikari's exclusive now, so I can't do anything. But we had a great working relationship as far as the creation, and obviously people love the work. So
And,
you know,
and so, I mean, I hate to say this, and I'm going to be very nice about it, but I don't think even just comics and competition, I don't think
yeah.
it's just Kickstarter. I think there's a lot of good stuff with stores out there with variants. I think
Mhm.
there's a lot of good, self-publishing people out there, and
Yeah.
I think Kickstarter has competition beyond that. And I think
That's
variants
good.
like
That's
events.
that's healthier to me. You know.
And so I think, and this is just me, and I'm a capitalist, that you have to earn my dollar. Like, I'll be
Yep.
very honest with you, this cover earns my dollar.
Yeah.
It sounds weird, but that cover earns my dollar. And for somebody else, this cover might earn their dollar.
Yeah.
And
That's why I try and have a varied selection of interpretations, because I feel like that speaks to you, something else speaks to somebody else. It's nice. People go on there and I think they like that something usually grabs their attention. So, and I
it's,
love working with the artists I work with. So it's all good.
yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait. I definitely want a Courtney Rose cover now. I want a Greg
Yeah.
Watson, a Courtney Rose cover, and a Sun Kumanaki. Oh my God. All three of them are
Yeah.
just freaking special. Just,
Yep.
this is the only way I can say it.
Yeah.
But I digress. I think we covered a lot of stuff. You do a lot of stuff. We didn't cover like 90% of what you do ever, because you're so stacked up. It's a good way to put it. And
Well,
everything you've done.
we can talk again, but I appreciate you having me on for the Kickstarter stuff. And anytime you want to talk, just let me know.
But I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself.
Okay.
Obviously, you got a lot of stuff going on. The Kickstarter, you have a bunch of stuff with, Werewolves of Brooklyn, which is a Westchester, which I might eye that Steph Wilson cover or another cover, the original
Yeah.
art, because I am from Westchester, New York.
There
So
you go.
that is like the perfect book for me,
Yeah.
in so many ways,
Hmm.
But I digress right there. But all the stuff, where can people find you, support you, check out what you're doing, push it out, fun stuff in that nature.
All right. Well, Libertine Kickstarter is Libertine Art Book. Has a shared universe on it. Has the Shikari covers. Something for everybody. Go in there and check it out. Vampires in New Jersey on Facebook. Also on Three Heads Comics on Facebook. And even more popular, my Instagram is usually where people contact me, and Vampires of NJ on Instagram. And that's mostly it. I mean, you can contact me anywhere. Like I said, when I'm not doing the Kickstarter, I do have an eBay store, Three Heads Comics. So, but so far so good. We're starting the year off with a bang.
That's the way to do it. It's the way to do it. It's the only way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, and I'm going to keep saying it, you have to support indie. What that means for everybody who's listening is that you need to, when people have campaigns, you need to go out and support those campaigns. You need to check out what people are doing. And let's say you miss a campaign or that book is not for you, you can share it out. Or if that creator has another book that is more your jam, you could go buy that book. And it directly and indirectly supports any project that they're doing and allows for it to continue. And if none of it suits you, but you want to be supportive, obviously, as I stated before, you can follow them on social media, you can share it out, and it makes a huge difference. And you may not think it does, but a share on Facebook, a like on Instagram, a retweet on Twitter can potentially reach a new backer who may want that project. So it is something to keep in the back of everybody's head, and it is important. And then about me really quickly, obviously, I'm Pop Anime Comics on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, on YouTube. I appreciate there's an interview for everybody on my YouTube channel. I think I have almost 500 interviews now. So if there's
Nice.
not an interview for you on YouTube for me, I can't help you. I'm sorry. I guarantee you I've interviewed everybody in every sector, hands down. And if you don't think I've interviewed a sector, I dare you to challenge me, because you'll be wrong. But anyway, I digress right there. I also do allow people, if you would like to run ads on my show, you can reach out to me, or you can click my link in the description down below. And more importantly, I do have Buy Me a Coffee if you want to support independent media. But more importantly, I appreciate being subscribed to on YouTube more than anything else, because I want to get to 510. I'm at 508, guys. I want to get to 510 by the end of May. That's the goal. Two more. That's it. That's what I want. So please, everybody, make me happy, because that actually means something. I want you to actually watch my content, everybody, because that also helps tremendously. And also go support Nightwolf. It's a good book. It's a good book. It's over like 10K. Any book that's over 10K on Kickstarter, you should go support. It's very important that you go do that, because they are a sponsor and they are helping make this show work. But beyond that, I don't have anything else to say, and I'm going to give you the final word.
Go indie.
I couldn't have said that any better myself, everybody, and that is a